So there's 4 3mm screws in total, 2 on this side and 2 on the other side. Let's go ahead and get them removed. Once you have these 4 screws removed, what I like to do is lift up the trolley handle and then use this to pull on it. Now with the trolley handle removed, the top cover assembly is held on by 8 3mm screws. So let's go ahead and remove those. With those screws removed, we can go ahead and lift the cover off. Now keep in mind that there's going to be some cables connecting the cover to the wheel. So make sure when you lift up, you can come in here and there is a white clip for you to, a latch for you to release, and then you can pull off the head of the cable. Now we're going to go ahead and remove the driver board in order to replace it. Now first things first, we're going to remove the battery connectors. Now before you touch any of the connectors, making sure that your board is not powered is of utmost importance. So if it was powered, you will see some green lights. But if the board has 0 lights shown, it means that there's no power to the board and you're safe to work on it. Now with that out of the way, let's go ahead and remove the battery connectors first. So you're going to grab on the yellow piece with your fingers and pull it off. It might be a little bit tight, but just make sure you don't pull on the cables because you don't want to damage any of the cables. There you go. Now what's next is these cables here. So all of these cables here, if I'm going to pull this apart, you'll see that they have finger clips before you pull them off. So just make sure again that you depress these finger clips and pull them off nice and securely. Pull it with the plug head instead of the cables. Okay. With that out of the way, we're going to go ahead and use a hex tool to remove the phase wires. 4mm hex tool. Make sure you save these screws and you don't drop them on the board. With the phase wires out of the way, you'll see this extra black connector. This is the hall sensor cable. So we're going to head to press this latch and pull off. Make sure you depress this latch, it's a bit hard. There you go. Now the driver board has 4 screws, 1 on each corner, but there's actually also a middle screw right here. So just making sure that you remove all 5 screws before you try to pull the driver board out of the heatsink. So we're going to start on the edge here. These are all Phillips screws. If you have magnetic tools, it does help a lot when trying to remove the screws. We've got 1 screw hidden over here with all these cables, so just making sure that, again, take the cables out of the way so that you don't damage any of the cables accidentally before you go ahead and insert your screwdriver. It's over here in this corner, on the front corner. And then one last one hidden behind this cable. Perfect. With those 5 screws out of the way, we can go ahead and lift the driver board out of the heatsink. Now with the driver board, it does have thermal paste underneath, so it might be a little bit more difficult to release. So to release the board, what you want to do is pry lightly just on this edge that you have. So you're going to pry a little bit and try to get it to lift very gently. And then make sure you pry the other side, being very gentle with it. It doesn't take a lot of force, but you need to release the thermal paste. And then what you can do is if you take these cables out of the way, you can go ahead and try to release this board. There you go, I got it released. Being careful with all the cables in question and make sure you don't snag any of them. Boom. So here you have the control board and you have the thermal paste. So when you do go ahead to replace your driver board, just make sure to reapply this thermal paste to make sure that the connection between the MOSFETs and the heat source and the heat sink with the copper vapor chambers have a really good and solid thermal conductivity. Now, if you need to purchase this thermal paste, it is 5W thermal paste that we use. If you want to buy a higher thermal conductivity, that is fine as well, but at the minimum, you need to have 5W.
So now we're going to go ahead and reinstall the driver board into the wheel. First things first, you want to get your at minimum 5W thermal paste and then apply some evenly throughout. And what we're going to do is make sure that these white plugs are facing the rear of the wheel and the capacitors are on the left side of the wheel. Now I'm going to try to pull the cables aside and insert it as best as we can, carefully making sure that we don't touch any of the cables so that there's good adhesion with the thermal paste. Looks like we're golden. Once that is down, we're going to go ahead and grab our screws and put them back onto the board. So we can start with the middle one. Now if you have a magnetic screw head that holds the screw, this is of course much more convenient. So we'll do the middle one first. Again, we're going to just put them in loosely until they're all in, and then we'll snug down the board all in one shot. This one might be a little bit hard to access. Once you have all 5 screws in, we'll go ahead and tighten them down. Make sure that they're hand tight, but not too tight. So once they get to the bottom, we'll give a nice quarter turn, and we're good to go. Quarter turn. Don't forget the middle screw. This one's easily forgotten. So quarter turn once it's tight. So now that it's tight, we're just doing a nice quarter turn. Get this one down tight. Now ideally you'll be doing this by hand and not using power tools, because with power tools you can easily strip the Phillips head or you can over tighten. There you go. Perfect. Now with all those nice and tight, we can go ahead and do everything in reverse. So the first thing we do is plug in our hall sensor cable, which is this black connector. When you push it down, make sure you hear that click. So it's nice and snug. And then we're going to go ahead and install our phase wires. So the first one's the yellow one, which is the shortest. We're going to grab our 4mm head screws. I'll start with the yellow one. Now with these posts, again, you want to make sure they're snug, but you're not going to be cranking on them. So here, I have it basically finger tight. I'm going to add a small turn, and that's good enough. If you over tighten it, you will run the risk of taking the post out of the boards and damaging the board. So be very careful not to over tighten. So once you're down here, you can see there's still wiggle room. We're going to get down to the no wiggle room, and then just give another quarter or an eighth of a turn. And then the last blue one. So make sure, like, if you look at this cable, you see that there's a more flat side, and then there's a part with a lip. So making sure that the lip is upwards will give you a better, more secure connection. It doesn't move anymore, and then just give it a snug eighth to quarter turn, and then we're good. So now that the phase wires and the hall sensor is in, we're going to go ahead and reconnect the cables to the driver board and the batteries. So we got the first 6-prong, making sure that this clip aligns with the backside. So we're going to rotate it and insert it until you hear click. There you go. Then we got the 8-prong, same thing, got the clip on the farther side. Here, click. The 4-prong, and then one last 6-prong. With that out of the way, we're going to go ahead and connect our batteries. Now you don't have to worry about sparks, because right now our batteries, they have the 3-part BMS, the BDU, BCU, and BMU. And what it does is it actually acts as a disconnect and it'll prevent any sparking. So here we'll plug this in. As you can see, no sparks. And plug that battery in right there. Now with that out of the way, we are done the installation of our driver board. So we're going to go ahead and snug all these cables in nice and tight so that we don't pinch them on reinstallation. And you can add a couple of zip ties if you want. Here, you can see that one of the seals, if you come around. Now we're going to grab our tub cover. There's this cable and it's going to go to that unused slot that we mentioned over here. Perfect. And then we're going to route this cable along the side and put the top cover on. Okay, so there are 8 screws that are going to go down. We're going to start at the front here. I already have 1 screw. So we're going to start in the middle, 2 3mm screws. And we're not going to tighten it out fully yet until all the screws are in place. Put one on the opposite side. And then we're going to go to the middle. And then if you see this that's popping out, what you want to do is make sure that it gets put into the right groove. So when you put down this screw and you tighten things down, just do a double check on body fitment. Okay, now that all the 8 screws are put in, we're going to check this alignment here to make sure that the body fitment is good. So here it looks like it's popping out. We're going to push that inwards. You can hear the pop. We're going to make sure that the body is in the right groove. Let's go to the other side and confirm. So here this is a bit lifted up, but once we cinch it down, it's going to go into the right place. This looks like it's in the right place, so we're good to screw down the board. We'll start with this middle screw. Well, as it's coming down, I'm going to push on this edge to make sure that it goes in the right spot. There you go. Then we can switch down the front, checking this front handle part for alignment, and then make our way to the back. There you go, you hear the clicks. Same thing in the front, we're going to push on this edge as we tighten this down to make sure it goes in the right spot. Then this middle one, and then the rear one. Okay. Now the last step is to install the trolley handle. So we're going to go and place it in the slot, push down firmly, and then grab your 4 3mm screws. So we got the 4 3mm screws. Make sure that we place them in place, and then we'll tighten them down together. Once all 4 screws are in, we're going to make this nice and hand tight. So once you reach the end, just a little bit extra, just to cinch it down. Okay.